This episode is supported by the American Resource Center, or the ARC. ARC is the first American space of its kind in Europe, and it exists for one reason: to connect Serbian talent with American opportunity. Whether you're 15 or 35, building in tech, entrepreneurship, AI, or creative industries, ARC gives you direct access to programs, mentorship, and networks that used to require a plane ticket to Silicon Valley. It's not just a space, it's a bridge, and all programs are free, and you can find them at Ložionica in Belgrade, and you can start building your path beyond borders.
If you're a startup founder from the Balkans, you'll eventually need a US company to sell into the US market, use Stripe, or raise VC money. But here's the problem. US lawyers charge between $600 and $1,000 an hour. Opening a bank account as a non-resident is a nightmare. You need a US phone number, operating address, and there are a lot of hidden costs plus lawyer lingo you can't understand. This is why we have partnered with Neobase. They are a team of Balkan founders who have been exactly where you are. They're 10 times cheaper than US lawyers, and they handle everything end to end, from the corporation, bank account setup, tax filings, and basically leaving you to focus on your own business. Head to neobase.co, book a free consultation, and mention Scale SE to get 10% discount off your LLC or C Corp setup. Today's guest, Luka Prelevic, has a very particular background. From a lawyer to a consultant, investor, and now managing director of a 300 million ARR startup from Greece, on track to win unicorn status, all before turning 40. Luka Prelevic started out his career working as an analyst at a couple of different companies like Bank of America and Merrill Lynch, before joining a law firm to work with his father, a prominent Serbian lawyer. During his 3 years as a lawyer, Luka also did a master's in management at Bocconi University, and he also started a management consulting company for the students from Bocconi. After university, Luka worked a couple of years at McKinsey before investing his money in Hellas Direct and starting as a managing director. That was a little bit about Luka. Luka, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, we're going to start with who was Luka before he started working on all of these interesting things like investments, working with startups and stuff like that. We want to know, what did you enjoy doing as a kid, and who was Luka before you started university and work life balance?
Well, before all the work, I guess, first of all, I finished high school in the United States, so that was kind of a good international moment also for me, and a formative moment. But I guess Luka is somebody who always liked to play, and I think that play just kind of changed its shape. It went from playing, and then sports, and then going into building things. And today I like to build things, and I always view the building of different things, whether it's companies, organizations, or some initiatives, as something that is essentially play, and that kind of curiosity for me. I also kind of have this resilience that was built through a series of things, and we have, even in the company where I work today, we have this principle of fall 7, rise 8, which essentially means you will fall, expect to fall, but then get back up and keep going. And I don't know, different things. Like I dislocated my shoulders 4 times and had 2 operations. But then after my first operation, I swam across the Montenegro Bay between Perast and Stoliv for about 2.5 kilometers, which the surgeon then gave me some bad feedback on that.
He didn't recommend that.
I think he took it as a medical example later. But it's definitely that sort of curiosity, seeing things rather as play, and not work, and not sort of forced learning, but just being curious about things, and then learning through mistakes. That was also another huge one. I didn't realize it up until recently that that's kind of the best way to learn. I always thought I was making mistakes, and that's where it stopped. But it turns out that actually learning through mistakes is probably the best way to learn. And I realized maybe a few years ago that everything I truly know that is important, I actually learned through mistakes. So I would say those were kind of the early years before jumping into all the stuff I do today.
All right, so you've talked about mistakes. What were your biggest mistakes, let's say? Or, I mean, mistakes is kind of like a bad word, because mistakes are just a stepping stone to success, right? But like, what are the things where you stumbled on during, let's say, your university years, or when you started your company, when you were doing masters in Italy at Bocconi?
Yeah. I think, yeah, mistakes is a bad word, but mistakes are mistakes. And it's kind of, reality is just there and reality is quite objective. It's more how you process it. So when you do go through something that there could be a mistake, you could kind of think through that positively and say, okay, how do we do this better? Or you could go down, right, with your mood. So yeah, I wouldn't view mistakes as a bad word. I think it just has a bad connotation. But yeah, some of the kind of learnings or mistakes. One was for example, while we were founding or building the company during my master's time, we essentially built a custom dev shop and then started building a couple of our own softwares in-house. And we kind of had this, amusement of building the product, and we were completely in love with the product, which is great. And so you need a superior product, or a product that is sort of 10x better, as Peter Thiel would say. But then we almost forgot about actually scaling that product and taking it to the customer. And then, whenever we benchmark our product against similar things around the world, so not necessarily competitors, but similar software around the world, we would always look very good, right? But we didn't. We kind of failed to take that to the customer, or that like famous group of first people that love your product first. So maybe that was one of the early mistakes we made. I guess another one is I've done sort of, in a way, too many things to get where I am. I kind of, started with, launching my own IT company, and then doing law, and then from law doing 2 masters in economics, then
Two masters, okay.
yeah, then consulting after that, and then kind of going through very different things. And I think in a way it's from not thinking early enough about what is it that I would truly like to explore and dive into. So that play that we talked about, the curiosity, wasn't necessarily directed. It was more like general play or general curiosity. And I didn't really take time, and I didn't know I should take time to really think that through. So that turned into kind of a lot of energy spent on different things before kind of finding a direction that looks very good.
So you mentioned you were a lawyer. What did that look like? And I know that your father is also one of the like renowned Serbian lawyers, and you worked with him for a period of time. How did that look like, and what influence did your father have on you?
Yeah. Well, my father, first of all, had a huge influence for me becoming a lawyer.
Oh yeah,
So,
definitely, yeah.
Especially when you kind of don't have a clear direction or clear argumentation for another direction.
Yeah.
Then the kind of persuasive environment around you, pushes you in one way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of the reason for going for law. I liked law. I think being a lawyer is quite fun, and that was formative in a way of kind of learning how things really work. How do I apply, the legal system around us? How do I negotiate better, and so on. So that was quite good in terms of getting to the basics for doing things later. But then I think that wasn't something that I wanted to devote myself fully early on in the career, because with law, you essentially finish law, you become a lawyer, and then you're a lawyer for the next 40 years, right? So that was something that kind of felt too soon to just go into that and sign off on being a lawyer forever. That said, I like law. It's very good at forcing you to think precisely, which is important, and forcing you to think in very structured ways.
So that's great, but like your father was kind of your first mentor in a way.
Yeah.
What did you learn from your first mentor?
Both my father and my mother, but
Okay.
yeah, my mother was also an influential businesswoman in Serbia. But yeah, for my father, I think definitely like relentless integrity and the importance of kind of long-term thinking, and just staying clean, staying on the right side, staying on the high integrity side, taking that road every time, even though it means less gain in the short run and potentially more gain in the long run, or at least having the right reputation whenever you sit in a room. I think that was probably the biggest thing that I learned from my father. He was also obviously somebody that is an entrepreneur himself, right? He was a judge first, and then from being a judge through kind of going through the crazy 90s, then started building a law firm, which became a very prominent law firm. And then from there, investing in other things and building further. So I guess another learning was you can do things on your own. You don't necessarily need to just chase other organizations or places. Yeah.
Cool. So you also worked at McKinsey, right?
Yeah.
And McKinsey is known for like having like amazing projects. How did working at McKinsey and then after that going to work at Hellas Direct, how did that path look like, and why Hellas Direct?
Yeah.
So
McKinsey is a great place to learn. So it was a fantastic opportunity to kind of gain more experience. Again, I knew I wanted to do uh, see more things in business and see how things function and learn from the best. I didn't necessarily know what exactly I wanted to do, right after the two masters and so on. So McKinsey was a fantastic place for that. I worked with McKinsey for a little over 4 years, worked everywhere from Southeast Asia, South Korea, South Africa, United States, Europe. And it was fantastic in kind of seeing a bunch of different projects, a bunch of different industries. 1 month you would be in a mine doing mining, and another month you would be in a different country doing telecoms, and then a digital transformation somewhere else. So it was fantastic in terms of that. I must say, at McKinsey, I learned things that I didn't expect to learn. You kind of expect, financial modeling and,
what did you
uh,
learn?
but you learn kind of these soft things. You expect to learn the hard, economics and stuff like that. But essentially, you learn how to problem solve through ambiguity, which is fantastic. And it's also good if you want to do entrepreneurial things later. You learn how to handle politics. Basically, in every company that we went into, we had to spend probably a third of our time managing politics between the different layers of management there and the politics with McKinsey and so on. And I mean that in like a good sense, not some bad sort of politics. But it's good. Just gave me the recognition. I think in Balkans we're very direct. We're not
Yeah.
used to having that understanding the interests of other sides. McKinsey really forces you to really think deeply about how every decision or suggestion or whatever influences everybody else. It teaches you also how to be extremely effective and efficient at what you do. You never have enough time. There's always the famous joke of, the first thing that the project manager says on the first day of the project is we're 2 weeks late.
Yeah.
So you kind of learn through how to work through that. So all of those things were very, very good. For me, McKinsey was always sort of a learning opportunity. I didn't want to stay there forever. So as soon as that kind of learning curve flattened a little bit, I was thinking, what is the next thing that I would like to do? And I always came back to what I said before, right? Which is, curiosity and building things and iterating and seeing what is a solution that actually works and a problem that actually exists and that is worth solving. So I came back to that, and one thing that I wanted to build was the first digital insurance company in Serbia. And that was something that I analyzed, and I thought this is something that is big, first of all. Insurance is 2% of global GDP and roughly 2% of any country's GDP. And there's nothing digital going on in the space. And then through that research, I met the guys from Hellas Direct back when they were doing, I think, 20 million in revenue.
In annual revenue.
In annual revenue, yeah. And then we looked at their company. We also said, okay, let's look at Serbia together. I wanted essentially to exchange some equity for the technology that they had built. We looked at Serbia and we said it's actually too early. And we also realized that there is a massive opportunity to scale in Southeastern Europe and Central Eastern Europe what they have built. So at that time, they had already invested about 20 million euros in technology alone. They had raised by then about 50 million. They have had a fantastic team. The head of claims is a PhD in biology, and there were a lot of people from other McKinsey's, BCG's, and JP Morgan's and Goldman Sachs's of this world. And I saw that we could scale this much more. It's better to build this thing to its fullest potential rather than build sort of a kind of go through walls on my own thing. So that's how I became part of Hellas, and I'm now actively helping them reach that potential as a managing director. And we went from, I joined them, I believe, in 2019 or 2020. And we went from doing about 30 million at that point in revenue to 300 million in revenue this year. So in about 5, maybe 6 years, we went from 30 to 300 million. And we also reached profitability. So it's not one of those destructive growths where you grow at the cost of profitability. We actually reached both profitability and 300 million. So we're now at that road of doubling the company again. What helped us 10x the revenue first time was going into more channels and reaching a much bigger base of customers. Today, Hellas has 1.5 million customers. And then also going international, again, which is kind of that belief in Central Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe. We looked at Europe as a whole, and we realized that the fastest growing and most profitable region in Europe for the last 20 years is actually in insurance, is actually Central Eastern Europe. So we said, actually, the reason many companies are not here because there's too many countries and it's too complicated. But we can, if we consolidate this, we can actually build a very strong company. So that's essentially what we're doing, and we're going to Czech Republic next. And we're now adding a full ecosystem around insurance. So we want to be able to issue loans to our customers. We want to be able to give them other services and not just insurance and see them sort of once a year. We want to do that through sort of a super app that would handle all of their mobility needs and see all the data about their car, registration, all of that. We want to help them get their new car and so on. And that, we believe, can launch us definitely over 2 million customers, but probably also double the company to at least 600 million. And then maybe even get that famous unicorn
status.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting angle for like startups in Southeast Europe, in the Balkans. They are thinking about what is the next company I want to create, or what is the next company I potentially want to join. How did that look like for Hellas Direct? I mean, it sounds very easy, like, oh, I wanted to work with them and then I became a managing director, right? But what are the actual things that happened in between that at a certain point you were able to join as a managing director? Because they probably had the CEO and a managing director at that time, right? And it was at that moment a bigger startup. So yeah, just how did that look like? Did you approach them? Did they approach you? Like, what was
with many of these things, there isn't sort of a defined path that you follow and you end up somewhere. In a way, it was also my wish to build something big or to look for another thing to do. I wasn't necessarily interested in kind of the McKinsey path of going through the ranks. I was interested in building something that is big and being in a position to do so. So that's kind of, by definition, you need to kind of define what you want, and then the opportunities will kind of filter themselves out. So that's one thing. But the other one is I was sort of the first one that kind of went around and said, okay, this is much more valuable than just being in Greece, and we can go beyond. And then we prepared the company to go into Romania, and I was the only person until we hit 20 million in revenue. And in Romania, so the company, when we went to Romania, the company in Greece was doing 30 million roughly in revenue.
Okay.
Our wildest case for Romania, the case that everybody says this is the impossible one, was 20 million of revenue in the first year. And then we did 111 million in revenue in the first year. So I guess that also helped, right? Something that where I was sort of the only person helping out on the ground and building the company. That was
as like
probably
a contractor, external sales guy, or like internal person.
Basically part of the team and part of the full kind of management of the company. And that was sort of okay. Now we can do kind of even bigger things. We went from a company being a 30 million company in the year before to the company being 160 million or so in the year after that. So we, 5x'd the company in essentially a year. And that's kind of how you do that, is you kind of have a conviction, you build, and then if things go well, then you're essentially in a good position to take the lead.
So how were you able to do that in a year? How were you able to join a new company and build out the revenue in a new market in Romania, where you are not from? You're from Serbia,
Yeah.
So that's
the
a very
big
interesting.
the rest of the team, or the rest of the managing directors of the company are fantastic, right? And they had built essentially a fantastic company, so
Yep.
all credit to them. They had built amazing software, as I mentioned. They built processes that are the best in at least this part of Europe in terms of managing claims. They built very good products that we could take to other markets and so on. So the company was in many ways ready, and it was sort of stronger than its reach in terms of revenue. And then we took it to Romania, which was essentially at that time had like 9 insurance companies, which is another thing that was interesting for me when I looked at the insurance industry. You have an industry which is 2% of the GDP of the country. So every 50th euro of the country is insurance. But then you have 9 companies. And you look at them, and most of them, if not all of them, are not they're not digital companies, they're not new age companies. The hard thing about insurance is really the regulation, and the regulatory burden and so on. But actually, if you crack that, so if you do have that, like Hellas has, then it's a moat. Then not a lot of other digital attackers can follow easily, right? It's actually not easy to build all of these things. So once you have that, then it's about scaling. It's hard to get to that. That's why the company took several years to get to 30 million, but then took a handful of years to get to 300 million.
Sure.
Because it's hard to build these things up front. It's sort of like success overnight after 10 years of hard work. So it was about deploying all of these good things that we had built in Greece, and then deploying it into Romania. And Romania was also at its own inflection point. There were the insurers there were not good. Some of them didn't have enough solvency on their balance sheets. So we were able to essentially come in and capture all the switching, the customers that were switching and looking for something better.
Okay, that's interesting. So you are also an investor. How did your investing career start? And we want to know about that, and we also want to know about like some successful investments that you've made into startups or anything else.
I guess for me, investing again comes from being curious and collaborative, and like in the play, play takes the form of that now, and also having a conviction that some problem needs to be solved, and somebody else has a very good solution for that problem. So I guess that was my path into that, and obviously, having had the career at Bank of America first, and then McKinsey, helped a lot, right? So that was the start. Then I invested in a few things that turned out to go well. One is, for example, Bella and Bona, which is a startup in Munich that serves food. They are now at about 6 million ARR. And you also kind of learn a lot. I mean, they went through such a roller coaster with COVID. So I invested right before COVID, and they deliver food to companies in offices. So they collaborate with the firm. They're the employees of that firm can select dishes in a portal that is dedicated only to that firm, and they will deliver 50, 200, 500, whatever meals to that particular company. It's like a outsourced canteen in a way. But the food tastes good because it was built by two Italians.
Okay.
And then that company, COVID hit, nobody goes to the offices.
Yeah.
So now, downsize, take time to prepare the tech. The German government also helped a lot of startups survive and pay for some of the salaries. And then COVID goes away, people start coming back to the offices. So now they are the best position because their competition wasn't as strong and wasn't as ready. So now they're really capturing the growth very well. So that's like an interesting learning that sometimes you can do many things right, but then the market will just go all over the place, and there aren't many things you can do except work on what you can work on, which for them was get around on time, so you have resiliency through unforeseeable things. In this case, COVID. Nobody could have predicted it. Work on your tech so that once COVID goes away, you're ready, and so on. So that's one. Another one is tied to actually, again, investing. It's called Velvet. It's from United States. Now I think about 3 million ARR or 4. It's a AI platform for managing your own portfolio. So they work with a lot of multifamily offices, venture capital funds, and different other types of funds to track their portfolio. It's just that and obviously, there are softwares for managing portfolios. But what they realized is it's very burdensome. You need a team of analysts that is constantly entering information and taking care that all the information is entered perfectly, so that then you can have some pre-selected and pre-formatted graphs. They said basically this needs to be much more flexible. And we need AI to do that. So now you basically send to the system all the unstructured data, like updates to investors via email and stuff like that. It takes in all the information, updates it, and you can just ask it what you need to know. So what are all my companies with ARR of this in East Coast, West Coast, or whatever. And then you get a portfolio that is kind of tied to what you want to solve for. And in a way, they market themselves as replacing one of your analysts, but I think they do even much more than that. So that's another very good investment. And then another involvement was with Heritage Holdings, which is a totally different type of involvement. Heritage Holdings is essentially a shared structure for family offices primarily, to access the best funds in the world. So you have like, Bessemer, Axel KKR, and so on. Okay. And if you wanted to go and invest, you would probably have a 20 million minimum to invest in that
in those private equity funds.
Yeah, or VC funds as well. Because they just have so much demand. They also don't want to have too many small tickets and so on. And even then, you would probably not get in because they have other institutional investors that want to get in. So you're kind of next in line, and so on. So Heritage kind of went into solving that issue and enabling to families to diversify themselves much more. So rather than having to invest 20 million as a minimum in all of these amazing funds, you pool up the money, and then Heritage invests 20. Yeah. And then the other one is just simply building those relationships so you are at the table and you can actually invest in these while retaining all the flexibility. So you can still choose all of the funds that you want to get into. So that's kind of what Heritage does. And I have this title of founding member at Heritage, but I was basically one of the early investors there, and it was founded by a very good friend of mine from the Ferragamo family office, or Ferragamo family. With his friend from a Bulgari family, and then other families with prominent names joined. And today it has about 100 different families that are part of it, and about 2 billion AUM that it's managing between these funds and also liquid capital. Yep. So that's a totally different type of involvement. That's not a startup. That's not a real estate or something like that. It is essentially a structure for investing in top funds. So you kind of, when you think about your portfolio, I think as an investor, whatever book you read, or probably these two, you get to a conclusion that diversification is extremely important. So having only startups in your portfolio, having only real estate in a particular city in your portfolio, having one massive exposure, these things are not investing for the long term. You need to create probably a portfolio of different things. You shouldn't go into too many things, but you should be diversified across this one. So those are some of like good stories. We can talk also about learnings.
We can talk about the bad stories. What I want most of our listeners to understand is if you can drill down and explain like, okay, 2 million AUM. So just so that everybody knows, AUM is assets under management, which means you the that Heritage Holding is managing 2 billion in assets. Explain to our listeners like what is a family office and how did you came into this like circle of friends with like the Bulgari, Ferragamo, and the other
Yeah.
guys?
So family office is essentially your own structure for managing your family's capital.
Okay.
And that's a very kind of catch-all phrase for 100 different structures. Family office is never one single structure that it's not like a venture capital fund, which is always, fund, which is a partnership between limited and general partners and so on. There's no such structure. Family office is more like a general term for a structure for managing your family's capital.
Okay.
There are people who are first generation wealth creators, meaning you are a successful entrepreneur, for example, and you sold a company. And now you're going from that entrepreneur scaling LTV to CAC and all of those numbers into now you've exited that company. So now you're managing your own capital. And you need some sort of structure to manage that capital. So it can be that. The word family isn't necessarily key there. It's more about your own kind of office for managing your capital. All the way to families who have multi-generational wealth. I've met family offices with 10 or 15 generations back. And it's essentially how do you manage that capital passing on through generation to generation. The biggest point there is always preserving capital rather than let's double triple this in a few years, and then also how do you grow it obviously over time. So that's what a family office is. That's going now through a massive revolution. We're now in the age of the biggest wealth transfer ever in history. About $80 trillion are getting transferred from one generation to the other. About 70 of that is going to to the inheritors, and about 10 trillion is going to sort of NGOs and nonprofits and these causes. Just for comparison, the GDP of the United States is about 30 trillion. So this wealth transfer is at least double the size of GDP of US. So that's how big that transfer is. So a lot of new family offices are getting formed. They have a lot of software needs, systems needs for managing that portfolio. That was one of my thesis on investing in Velvet, for example. But yeah, like how did I get involved there? So one part is, again, curiosity on how do I do the best with some money that we wanted to invest.
You as the family office.
Yeah, well, family holding or family as a whole.
Yeah.
With our own money. So the first thing that I said is let's be collaborative. This is not a competition. We can definitely learn from others, and I think the family office world is a very collaborative world, which is fantastic. So people do like to share knowledge. They do not view themselves as competing. Quite often they see themselves as collaborating on different investments. So for me, that was kind of the start. Was okay. Let's learn from the best, and also let's learn maybe even from the worst, or let's learn from mistakes, which is super useful. Then another way I started kind of being surrounded by that world was again through the friend of mine from the Ferragamo family, through some of his friends, the Bocconi University, McKinsey was also helpful in that regard. Friends of friends. There are also a lot of communities that are formed with simply just families and members of these different families, where again knowledge is shared. I think that there has been built an entire industry of family offices, of how do you form a family office and family office conferences and things like that. In many ways, it's even too much. Many times you don't even get families coming to some of these. So it's about picking the right communities that you want to be part of. And then in those communities, I'm part of, humbly, I'm part of a few of those. You get to learn a lot. You get to meet great other family members. And many of them are navigating exactly the same questions, which is, how do I preserve wealth? How do I set it up so it transfers through generations? How do we capture opportunities by keeping the investing going, but still not take too much risks so that we lose capital? And then, yeah, you kind of hear an experience of somebody from United States and then from Italy and then from Germany and so on. So you see a lot of different experiences from around the world. And that's one thing about family offices. There isn't like one archetype of family office. They are almost all different. There's even a saying, if you've met one family office, you've met exactly one family office. So you haven't met, you don't understand what all of them look like.
So you talked about communities. You've also kind of are building your own community, right? In the last couple of years, you have been organizing parties for like different investors who are coming to Belgrade, and you were able to bring a guy who was very interesting. I heard that in another podcast, Paige Craig, who has invested in more than like I think 15 unicorns so far in Lyft, in Twitter, in AngelList, Airbnb. Um, and you brought him to Belgrade. How did you do that? Why did he even come to Belgrade, like from the States? Like, what's the story there?
Yeah. Look, I mean, for me, I view things as relationship first, and friendship first, and I guess that's also why I built not just a good network of people, but rather just I call them all friends. They are friends from these different families and backgrounds. Uh, I hope they feel that I'm not there to take something from them, that we are actually there to develop a relationship and friendship. And I think that's where it starts. And I think from that genuine angle, because in these worlds, often there isn't really a genuine angle, that's kind of where relationships start. So I think that's really the most of the answer, and I believe they came to, or they have told me they came to Belgrade because they wanted to see each other and visit what I'm building. But the events or gatherings or sometimes also partying, that's all just a way or a way to formalize this, you know, a reason for them to come to Belgrade. And you need to kind of give them a reason to come. Otherwise, they will always kind of delay later. So for what I've done a few times is, I bring a few of these friends from all over the world, and then a few top investors from the region and also here locally, and gather us in some beautiful location, either a rooftop or the silo sea. So that's kind of how it all gets together. And for them, when they know, okay, there's more there's an event happening, I could hear actually what's going on in the region. They are interested in this region. They know that some amazing companies have come from this region. It's just that when they open the Google Maps, it's probably a bit too complicated to navigate where they should go. So if you digest that, and if they trust you because of the relationship that other people there, and because who you are, they trust you that other people there will be kind of like them and coming for the same reason, they are actually very happy to come over. And that was also the case with Paige Craig. I mean, Paige and I know each other now for a few years. I've been to his house also in Manhattan, in New York. Fantastic guy. He was one of the first investors as an angel in Twitter, in Lyft, in AngelList, and in some of these amazing companies, and then built a fund, an early stage fund, where every 10th company that he invested in later became a unicorn, which is incredibly hard if you're an early stage fund. It's easier when you're investing in sort of Series A, B, C, because you kind of see you in a company, or you make the company a unicorn.
Yeah.
If it's early stage, it's incredibly hard. And that's one example. I mean, this year we had also Pete Benedetto from Endeavor, which has a total of 60 plus unicorns. We had other amazing people coming over, and that's kind of what I want to keep doing. Is I believe that investors here need to exchange knowledge. I think that a lot of people here are often not ready to invest in new technologies or innovation or something new. And the reason why we all keep investing in apartments is because A, there isn't really an alternative, but B, there is an alternative. We just kind of need to educate ourselves around it. So part of what I want to do with gathering these people into, at least a gathering, if not a community, is to exchange experiences as investors to investors in like a very safe environment where they feel ready to share. And I feel that my job is to select these relationships and these people, bring them together, and create an environment where there's no shady capital and people who made money in the wrong ways. And there's also, it's clean of people who are there to be transactional. So really, when they meet other people, they feel, okay, this is somewhere where I can share both my bad experiences with investing and my good experiences with investing. And we can actually, exchange contact and think about investing together in a startup or a fund or some new structure or something like that. So that's the goal.
Okay, now I have a very interesting question, because you mentioned currently what's happening is the biggest transfer of wealth to the new generations. The new generations are younger, more tech savvy, right?
Yeah.
There's that part. There's also another part where VC industry is kind of going down a bit. And what is happening a lot, and what I've heard for family offices, is that they're investing more and more into startups, and they're taking analysts from VCs, they're bringing them on as employees, and they're saying, listen, we want a specific part of our family office holdings to invest in startups. So what is your take on family offices investing in startups? That's one thing. And like, what's the trend there? And then the second question is, how do startups find family offices that are interested in investing in startups?
That's why I keep encouraging startups to think a bit broader, not just about VCs. So a great question. I wouldn't say it's a trend. I would say it's a proliferation of family offices becoming VC investors. There's a huge boom, and maybe even we don't really see it so much in our region. But outside our region, this is booming. I mean, many of the communities and WhatsApp groups or whatever get-togethers that I go to with family offices specifically, only family offices, a lot of the discussions are about investing in startups and essentially becoming a VC firm. And that's often what families call our direct investments. So there's a proliferation of that for sure. If you think about the amount of wealth that is transferred, which I mentioned, there's also a huge influx of capital that is going that way. Maybe before I go into how this works, I would also cover the kind of reason behind it. You see, essentially, the new generations that are now inheriting the wealth have grown up in an environment of startups, innovation, technology, and so on. They're kind of the generation that is still controlling the wealth, or they're also grandfathers. They've grown up in that sort of either baby boom era or forming different companies. So it was a bit different. Innovation happened differently. It was more about scaling the family firm or something like that. It wasn't really about scaling through technology.
And it was more about like investing in infrastructure projects in traditional businesses and stuff like that.
Exactly. And then you also see that back then the most valuable companies were infrastructure companies and things like that.
Oil companies, real estate companies.
Today, the most valuable companies are almost all technology companies. I think there's only one. I think Aramco is the only one in the top 10 that isn't a technology company out of the most valuable companies. So you have a generation that is now taking over and that is by default more digital and more interested in innovation. So that's kind of the core reason behind it. Now we get into, okay, how to do this, and is this a good thing or not a good thing? I think, it is what it is. In many ways, it is a good thing. I think it's liberating more capital to go towards startups. If I put on my sort of semi-VC hat on, a VC would complain that there is too much noise and too much money going into startups. So it's often hard for startups to, essentially you want the best startups to go really quickly, and you want the ones that are not a good idea and are not solving a problem, you don't want them to exist. You want those entrepreneurs who may be good entrepreneurs to work on a different idea because their idea is maybe not working. But if you have too much capital going in, that's not happening. You have a lot of startups that are surviving simply because they can get capital. So that's what a VC firm would complain on. Another thing is there's this massive notion of family offices being tourists in the VC industry. And that's often what the VCs would say. I would say that's true to a certain extent. Many times VCs overestimate their ability to select the best companies. And there are many VCs that are not better than many family offices at investing in VC. So there needs to be some more humbleness on that end. And on the other hand, many family offices do become tourists, and tourists never get a good return in VC investing. I think the family offices that will do well in VC are the ones that have a focus area and a deep knowledge in a certain sector, and then build their VC investing around that. So if you're a family office where you own a pharma company or a biotech company, and then you start investing in biotech startups, you are, I think, better than the average VC. You're most probably not better than the top VC, because top VCs are really top VCs. They're amazing at what they do. But you're probably better or even significantly better than the average VC, because you have the expertise to underwrite these companies and understand them. And you often have also a way to generate revenue for them or the first clients. And that actually de-risks a lot of startups. So I think in that sense, if there is somebody from a family office listening, or if somebody is trying to understand which family office to approach, that would be my first filter. Look at whether that family office is in your sector and is an expert in that sector, and then go for them. They will also have a much easier way of understanding what is it that you do. So I would say those family offices have a great place, and they also often hire really strong professionals. So you end up with a good team that can underwrite these companies. Another positive thing about family offices being in VC is that they have a longer term horizon. So often VCs will need to exit your company in about 5 years just to generate that return and give the money back to investors. With family offices, they can hold your company for the next 10, 20 years. So there isn't that sort of pressure. I would say those are very positive things.
And those are all good benefits for the startup founders as well, right?
Very much, very much. The kind of thing that I would be careful about is family offices that are tourists. So if a family office has done, I don't know, real estate before and is now spraying and praying in a bunch of different sectors of startups, you don't see a clear person that they hired in their team that is amazing at it. I'm not talking maybe to the startups, or maybe more talking to family offices. That's something to be a bit scared of. That will be really a filter for whether returns are actually going to happen. Now, as a founder, how can you access this? I think many of these family offices are becoming more public. There are now a bunch of different conferences and get-togethers and meetups. I would definitely look at families that have built big companies in your industry. Again, we can take biotech again as an example. There are many families who built their generational wealth in biotech. So filtering out for those, that's one thing. And then the other one is they always want to learn more. So if you offer them a learning opportunity because you're clearly cracking some innovation that they haven't thought of, they will almost always take that learning opportunity. It may take a longer time because, again, family offices don't have that pressure to invest yesterday. But as long as you have their attention, you can get there. And I think that would be a way. And in many ways, it's like searching VCs. I mean, you're again researching either LinkedIn, or you're researching who's appearing at conferences. You're researching which families were big in a particular industry, and then do they have a different name? They often have, their family office would have some other professional name. It wouldn't hold the last name of their family. You look for those things, essentially. That's kind of how you can access that. And I would encourage startups to do that. Many times, again, they'll find more expertise than in an average VC. They'll find somebody who can maybe generate a revenue opportunity. They'll find strong supporters within the family. I think it's a very good pool of capital for startups.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Do you know any Any platforms or any conferences you could recommend to founders where they can find this information?
I think the simple Google with first 10 pages will list many of those. There's definitely I don't know, Prestel. There's a bunch of others that happen around the world. Family Office Alliance. I think many family offices also come to the classic big tech conferences like GITEX or Slash or things like that. I think it's a lot more actually about pre-aligning conversations rather than trying to chase down the family office at these conferences. And that's actually something that I would spend the majority of my time on. Is pre-aligning conversation. You can meet there at the conference. If you like each other, they'll also refer you to other families. But probably chasing them down at the conference will not be too effective. It will probably be a waste of resources and time for the startup.
So doing really deep research and figuring out who are the guys in your industry that are family offices that are investing.
And offering, oftentimes offering the learning first, saying, look, we're doing something amazing by definition. We're a startup. We have scientists or amazing developers or whatever else in-house. Let me tell you about the problem and our solution, and then let's see what happens, right? Rather than saying, can I get 10 minutes of your time so I can pitch you? Which is also fine. Like that's all the effort is amazing, but I would say offering the learning first will probably get people faster, further.
And that's the Pitbull always says, and in his song, like, ask for money, get advice, ask for advice, get money twice. So based on that, like, what are your thoughts on the Balkan startup ecosystem compared to what you've seen throughout the world? You've invested in the US, you've invested in Germany, in German startups, and you've also had the pleasure of really spending a lot of time in Greece and in the Greek startup ecosystem through Hellas. What is your take on our Balkan startup ecosystem?
I think it's one that is developing fast, but on a sort of small base. So it's very early on. For all the reasons that we all know. I mean, we went through a transition before where we are now. Launching a startup wasn't necessarily a thing. It was more about joining either a state company or a large corporation. So I think in many ways you can't really map it to innovation. You can map it to the change of generations. You have a generation again now that is coming from being digitally native and where they didn't have the path of you need to be part of a big state company or something like that, but you actually have the freedom to kind of innovate in the world. So that's kind of the stage we're in. It feels like we are small today. It feels like a lot of things are happening. And it also feels like a lot of the components are there or are getting there, and something big will happen in the coming years. So I would definitely take the sort of optimist hat. I wouldn't necessarily think, oh, look, I mean, Greece or Estonia are so much bigger, so let's get depressed. I would rather just get inspired by that. And whatever situation we have today, we can just take that and make it much better. So I think that's kind of one, is we are a relatively small ecosystem today. Many things are coming up that I think will be very good. I think we can take the Greek example, and that's something that I would like us to do more or would be, I think, beneficial. You can also take the Estonia example. I think one mistake would be to take the US example, which we often do, is like, okay, Palo Alto created this ecosystem, so how do we do that? I would rather say, Palo Alto is its own thing and clearly in a different, universe. But, we can learn a lot from, I don't know, Greek or even better Estonian ecosystem. One thing that the Greeks did very well was base their opportunities and know-how on what they're good at. So you have a few sectors that are booming there. One is, for example, maritime technologies. There have been very successful startups that are working on science around seas and saving the life in the seas. or helping ships. There's a lot of shipping families that can, again, be revenue very quickly for these startups.
Yeah, and they can also invest and stuff like that. So.
Exactly, they can also invest. They became investors, back to our discussion about family offices investing. So looking at what entrepreneurship doesn't need to always be a consumer-facing app. Entrepreneurship can be, taking science about the seas or maritime industries and turning that into a company that is entirely B2B and doesn't have a consumer-facing app, right?
Yep.
That's something that I would encourage us to do here. We have amazing scientists, amazing universities, and we need to turn that science we're creating into more of startups. And that can be with us, agriculture, it can be biotech potentially, or pharma. It can be it can be also, in some cases, healthcare. There's a huge longevity trend today. There are many of these things that we kind of overlook when we talk about startups. So that's maybe one learning from them. For Greeks, again, one is maritime, another one is, again, agriculture and food. They have created a little bit of a brand of their food in the United States and other places. They are doing very well in sort of creams and skincare, which, again, with social media and everything, has become more important than ever.
Yep.
So again, looking at things that are important, and relate to you, not just looking at what is happening in the world, but also what do I have knowledge in. The other thing actually that we can actually copy from Greece is they have a very big diaspora, and a lot of the fintechs, including Hellas in a way, but a lot of other fintechs in banking and other things that they've built is by somebody from diaspora either financing or coming back and helping build a fintech or a financial firm. Mm-hmm. So I think we can also connect to our diaspora even more, and create that exchange. That doesn't mean everybody needs to come back at all. People should do what they believe they should do. It's just there can be that exchange, and maybe even if we have diaspora there, we have more of a bridge, because one thing that is, again, back to your question about the specifics of Balkans, our markets are too small to innovate. Yep. If you're innovating in the United States and you're creating a consumer-facing app, you have 300 million people with their cards registered and ready to go, right? So if you hit the right problem with the right solution, you have a lot of people that you can go with. Here, it's very different. You don't have such a big market. Every market has its own regulator, its own language, and everything else. So you kind of, by definition, not only need to solve the right problem, you also need to solve the right problem in a way that is very global. Yeah. And that's something that is harder for our startups. However, when they do solve the right problem, then they're in a better position, because it was even harder to think globally, and now they've by definition made it global, so that startup can potentially grow even faster. Yeah. So I think one definite need is we need to kind of give up on thinking that innovation can just happen in our own countries. Innovation from here, by definition, needs to be global. So building that bridge with the United States or other important markets is super important. I just came back from Saudi Arabia as well. They are in a huge need of a lot of technologies. Wherever you drive in a Uber, everything is a construction site. I bet we have civil engineers and construction engineers that can help on construction materials for there. So kind of creating those bridges into markets where things are really booming is something that would really help our ecosystem. And then you can also, again, come back to the Estonia example, where such a small micro country in a very kind of geopolitically hard place has produced so many different unicorns. So that just reminds us that we can do this.
All right. So if I can summarize for the startups, when you talked about different companies like Hellas and Bella and Bona, there one of the biggest things is timing. Timing is very important. Yep. The other part was look beyond VC investments, look at family offices as well that you can find in your industry that can be potential investors. The third one would be focus on industries where in your country those industries are strong, where you're able to find good problems to solve, and you can solve the problem on a local level. And then the other part is think global and then figure out a way to use the diaspora of your own country to go international. We also have, I think, Vega IT, one of the biggest Serbian IT companies. They just opened an office in Riyadh, so there's a lot of there's a lot of potential in UAE market and also the US market, right? So we need to think global from day one and think global of where we want to deploy that innovation or that service if we're doing. Luka, thank you very much. We have like quick and short questions for the end. So just I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. You don't have to have long answers. It can just be like very quickly. What is one hobby you love doing and why?
For me, anything related to nature. So hiking, swimming in the lakes, skiing. I've been trying golfing lately. Whatever is related to the woods, mountains, or nature.
What is one book that you have most recommended to people and why, or to like entrepreneurs?
I will definitely read. That's what I'm just reading now. Naval Ravikant wrote it, and the book is called The Almanac, or it's actually the Almanac of
Naval Ravikant.
Yeah, he's a fantastic, not only entrepreneur. I mean, he built Angel List and a few other amazing companies.
Yeah.
But he is also the amazing at the human side and the mental side of entrepreneurship and sort of the why behind people should or shouldn't go into entrepreneurship or investing and so on. So there's a deeper level. And he's also incredibly practical. So he's not somebody that is entirely philosophical, but he's incredibly practical.
Yeah. I read one of the blogs from Naval Ravikant. He said that when he looks at investing in founders, he doesn't look at product market fit. He looks at founder product market fit, which basically means that he's looking for that one founder who really has a huge background and huge challenge that he faced in his life where he wanted to solve that challenge, and he solved that challenge through a product market fit example where he built a product or something.
The best entrepreneurs don't go into entrepreneurship because it's a good opportunity to make money or become famous for launching and selling a company. Almost all of the best entrepreneurs out there were in love with the problem, were deeply technical on how to solve that problem. And then the consequences, they built a company around it because they needed to employ people and raise some money to build it. And then that company became successful. So the company and the startup itself typically should be a consequence of being in love with the problem and knowing the solution technically.
Yeah. Just like you were very much interested in insurance and then you went to work with Hellas Direct. How do you digest news and what do you read on a daily basis? Newsletters, papers?
I actually like podcasts. I like also YouTube and different podcasts that are on YouTube. But when you kind of go deeper, why? It's actually because I appreciate listening to an expert in a particular field, and oftentimes it's also not a field that I knew about. It doesn't need to be a field where I'm doing something. It can be an inspiration in a different field, and maybe I get interested in that field, or I can apply whatever I learn in that field to what I'm doing. So it's definitely kind of talking to different experts. I have friends now that are either parts of different funds, or again, family offices, or are experts or scientists in their own field. So most of my news comes from that. I try to shield myself away from sort of the global daily clickbait, roller coaster that we're all part of. So that's kind of that. And sitting down, I think we're all blessed to have AI, interfaces. You can, whatever topic you're naturally curious about, you can just talk to it. You don't even need to type. I think those are kind of my two main sources. Of course, I flip through the news sometimes and look at everything else. I don't actually have any social media. Maybe that's one way I don't get my news is through social media.
Okay. Good. What is one guest that you think we should definitely bring on the podcast?
I would say some of our amazing scientists. It's not a name, first and last name. Sorry about that. But I think we have amazing scientists with a lot of depth in different topics, and they don't get to kind of teach us or inspire us on these things quite often, and that can be super interesting.
Okay. Final question. What is one question I have not asked you that you think I should have asked you and that you don't get asked often?
I think it's a good question. Probably, maybe it was visible, but I like to go sort of a level deeper into the why, rather than talk just about kind of what's going on in the trends and so on. So one question would be, what is the right mentality of the best entrepreneur, or the right entrepreneur, or the successful entrepreneur?
So what is it? What is the right mentality?
And why mentality? It's one thing to say, okay, what is a good entrepreneur look like, and how do they raise money, and which is all important things. But also, wait a second, like before that, what type of person and what, not person, but maybe mentality gets you there. So I think that's one super important one. And often people skip that for all the right reasons. People want to know what's going on. But what is the right mentality? I think embracing mistakes and embracing that learning through mistakes is not the best way. It's actually the only way. Once you embrace that, you always take a hypothesis and you see if it's correct. If it's not correct, you then divert. That's also what Jeff Bezos says, is almost all of the decisions are reversible. So you can always just take A or B, and then if that's not correct, you then take the other one. Embracing mistakes as the only way to go forward and learn. I think building a mental resilience that things will not work. I think this expectation, it's so funny. I constantly, friends of mine or people on YouTube and everywhere talk about success stories, and dude, this guy launched this other thing, and like within 6 months it became this massive thing, and then they sold it and whatever. I can tell you that for almost every one of those stories, when I asked friends who are deeper on the topic about it, there was something that was different. So it's almost never that flashiness that was ever successful. There are oftentimes sort of hidden parts of the story which are not so positive and so on. So I would say chasing that flashiness and believing that you can somehow get rich quickly is one of the best ways to burn out and be very unhappy. I think you need to build the resilience that it's going to be hard, and then go with that. Now you may get lucky and actually everything is easy, which is great, but that's rare. You shouldn't expect that. And one way actually to do that is to again be in love with the problem. And I think if you, as an entrepreneur, you ask yourself, am I in love with this problem, or am I doing this because I just see an opportunity? It's like a business opportunity that I'm capturing. If it's the latter, you're likely not going to get too far at best, or the startup is going to fail. And you may also get burnt out, and you're under risk of not having the right mentality to go through this. If you ask yourself that and you say, actually, I really care about the problem, again, the company is a consequence, then you have the right mindset. Now, who knows whether you're going to get there, but you have the right mindset, and that will give you the resilience. You don't need to think too much about the resilience. If you really want to work on the problem, then that will give you the resilience to go through, because you care about the problem. You don't care about the destination so much. So those are kind of a few key pieces of having the right mentality for that.
Luka, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Guys, follow this page and see you on the next episode. If you're a startup founder from the Balkans, you'll eventually need a US company. To sell into the US market, use Stripe, or raise VC money. But here's the problem. US lawyers charge between $600 and $1,000 an hour. Opening a bank account as a non-resident is a nightmare. You need a US phone number, operating address, and there are a lot of hidden costs plus lawyer lingo you can't understand. This is why we have partnered with Neobase. They are a team of Balkan founders who have been exactly where you are. They're 10 times cheaper than US lawyers, and they handle everything end to end, from the corporation, bank account setup, tax filings, and basically leaving you to focus on your own business. Head to neobase.co, book a free consultation, and mention Scale SE to get 10% discount off your LLC or C Corp setup.